Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to briefly thank you for everything that you've been doing, not only for your participation in the project, but all the work that you do in your small homelands, your local places. Quite often, listening to Poland, we hear about Poland in the context of the bad things that happen, and we know they do happen. But sometimes we hear about Poland in the context of good things, usually to do with Warsaw, Krakow, the Festival of Jewish Culture, and so on. And what often evades public opinion hidden under the surface is a whole range of phenomenal things that actually happen outside those big centers. So traveling through Poland today, you practically don't. There is not a town, not a small locality where something good is not happening or has not been happening over the recent years, and it's happening thanks to people like you, and you often work in an area which is much more difficult than, say, Krakow or Warsaw. And I mean, for example, the cooperation with the authorities, city authorities, with sponsors, and quite often you have to face a series of difficulties. And your resilience, your anger sometimes against the reality you have to come up against. So this is what I would like to thank you on my own behalf and on behalf of all the people that visit your towns and see the fruit of your work. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you more often, be it in Krakow or in your localities. Thank you, Ada Kopcz-Pawlikowska, who was in charge of this project in our Galicia Museum. Thank you to all the sponsors, the National Institute of Freedom, for making it possible. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kuba, very much. As Kuba said, the Academy of the Guardians of Memory is done by the Galicia Jewish Museum. It's sponsored by the International Institute of Freedom and by the new FIO program. And thanks to all this, we've been able to meet you, to invite you over to Krakow, to tell you about what we do, to pass you some know-how information that you might find useful. Each of you had their own task to fulfill in their own localities. And now we will try briefly, I'll be a guardian of time, so we'll try briefly to tell us who you are, where the idea for your project and what you've managed to achieve. We'll not be drawing lots, so I'll be choosing randomly. Could you, Rafa, please start? Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being able to start as the first speaker. I'm a humble activist. I'm at the beginning of my path. When I compare myself to the other participants like Marek, Anna, I'm not sure if I can compare with them. What I saw already at the beginning of my presentation is that you all the title of your project is mentioned in the footsteps, traces of memory. That surely we didn't steal, we didn't pinch from the Galicia exhibition. It also appears in my presentation. The title of my presentation says in the footsteps of memory. I'd like to briefly tell you about what I've done through my presentation, about the goals, how the project developed, at the beginnings of my project, and the end product. I did it in my liceum, high school in Tomaszów Lubelski, a few kilometers from Bełżec, close to the Ukraine border. I try to encourage my youth to find the traces of the Jewish inhabitants of Roztoche, the area where we live, of their presence, to recover them from oblivion, and to delve into the memory of the elderly people who might still remember something from before the war. And we wanted to also organize some kind of competition for the students to reward them for the work, for discovering the history of their town. I wanted to make aware everybody in the town, make them aware that before the Second World War, Jews lived in the locality who contributed to the heritage of the region. What were the main goals of the project? Learning, familiarization with the Jewish history and culture within the Polish state, creating an attitude of openness and respect for the multi-cultural tradition of the Polish state, making students interested in the regional history of the Roztoche region. Jakub spoke about the local history, and this was also our goal to respect the history of our local homelands. Another goal to restore the memory and popularization of the memory of the Jewish past of the Roztoche region before the Second World War, the social life, cultural life, economic life, and also to collect the traces, material traces left by the Jews of Roztoche. What competence we would like to develop in our students? The student is able to describe the history of the Roztoche region, the cultural and social legacy of the Jews in of the region, to remember the history of the Auschwitz extermination camp, to be able to speak about the Shoah and know the basic facts about the Shoah, and also to create an attitude of openness towards other cultures and ethnicities and nationalities. I just want to make sure, am I heard? Is my presentation visible? Okay, thank you. So these are the stages of our projects. At the moment, we are at stage 1, because we began with workshops, and there's all the other stages are still ahead of us. So like a lesson in a museum, a visit to the Grodzka Gate in Lublin, a trip and a visit in the Polin Museum in Warsaw. The stages that we have already completed, although we live in a small place very far from big centers. An educator from Polin visited us, and she did workshop with our students. Our students learned about the history and traditions, Jewish traditions. It started with kind of groundbreaking, ice-breaking games. One of the exercises was about trying to recreate what a town might have looked like, where in close proximity there was an Orthodox church, a synagogue, and a Catholic church. Our students were very satisfied, and you can see this in the photograph. The educators handed out notebooks, Polin notebooks to our students. You can see our youth working here in the workshop. You can see one of the exercises. My question to you: what do you think is happening? This was meant to be a human sculpture. That was to present an object, a thing from the Jewish tradition. If any of you manages to guess what it is, I'll have an award for you. What do you think this is? So let me give you a little bit of help. This is to do with some material. My suggestion is that you send answers to Rafał. Shall I answer? Shall I give you the answer? No, let's leave it unanswered for the time being. So the question is, what do you think this is? This is one of the exercises that our students did. human sculptures through which they try to show various things to do with Jewish culture. Well, we managed to do only partially cards that were to be matched. It's being printed at the moment. So hopefully we'll be able to use these cards later in history classes or in Polish literature classes or in other classes to learn through playing and to remember certain basic terms to do with Jewish culture and Jewish past. This will be a pack of 32 cards, I think. What else would we like to do? At the end, we would like to meet online with a school from Belgrade, Serbia. I'd like to tell them what each of our students, the 25 students in our group who have joined the project of finding the traces of Jews in Karashini, and would like to present it to the Serbian students in English in a foreign language, and they would tell us about their experience. We could also organize some exercise and workshops for both groups together. What are the final products of the projects? What are they to be? So that the history and legacy of Jews in the Roztoczy region is not a forgotten history. So this is one of the hopefully one of the final end products. Also another one to know and remember the history of the examination camp in Belgrade, to be able to break each other's stereotypes and prejudice, to learn cooperation and problem solving together, to enlarge our historical knowledge, and to work towards our school becoming an open-minded, tolerant, empathetic school, a school where nobody is excluded, and a school that gives a chance to everybody. My presentation was meant to be brief, so I hope it was brief. Thank you very much for your attention. That's it from me. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to ask them. As for quite a large project, you were very brief. Thank you very much. I can see what you planned at the beginning really developed into a very good and multi-stage project. And it's good that your school is involved in it, and we'll keep our fingers crossed for all the other activities and stages to turn out successfully. Please keep us informed. Thank you very much. Please close your presentation and stop sharing the screen. I'd like Paulina Ziemba to tell us about her project in the town of Bochnia. Good evening. I'm very happy to meet, first of all, the participants of the project, to see and listen to you talking about your project. My project, unlike Rafał's project, is an open project. I myself come from Bochnia, and I decided that the best event to organize in my town, which has quite a rich history and a rich Jewish history, and we remember about our own Bochnia and Jews quite recently in 2015. A route of Jewish memory was opened thanks to Adam Apatowicz, who survived the Bochnia Ghetto. My PowerPoint presentation is not very big, but let me show you a few slides. So this is meant to show a monument in Israel. A few problems with screen sharing. So this is a monument in Kiryat Shaul in close to Tel Aviv, devoted to the Jews of Bochnia murdered during the Second World War. I decided in my project to relate or refer to the tradition of the memory of the Jews of Bochnia. We were lucky in Bochnia because the history of our Jews in Bochnia is not forgotten. The building of the synagogue from the early 20th century has survived. It's in good state. The Jewish cemetery is also in good state. The Bochnia Museum organizes from time to time various events and meetings devoted to the Jews of Bochnia. We have a collection of various Judaica. We're very lucky that Dr. Zawicka is employed in the Bochnia Museum, who organized a webinar for us, and she agreed to take part in our project. And I decided to organize in our Bochnia Museum, in the most traditional form, an open lecture for the general public, accompanied with an open discussion. And it referred to the so-called Thursday meetings, events organized on Thursday in our museum every week, which are aimed at everybody who's interested in the history of the region. Experts are invited to them, and people who are active in the region and have stories to share and experience to share. And our meeting was within a special Thursday meeting on the 18th of November. So it was a one-off thing. The title of the event was a bit provocative, and I meant to attract a great number of participants. And the title was Bochnia a Shtetl? Shtetl is associated with something small, perhaps not very developed, and Bochnia, from the beginning of its existence as a royal town, located close to Krakow, was a great center of trade in salt. So Bochnia was a big center of the map of Poland. But it was a good opportunity also for me to tell about what the shtetl was in general. I don't work myself in any organization or institutions, but I'm interested in the history of the local Jewish history and the phenomenon of the shtetl in the Galicia region. So which is why I actually joined the project, also due to my own personal interest. Let me also show you a few pictures, a few photographs. And please tell me if you can see photographs. Okay, so the first photograph is seen. The meeting took place in a very nice space, a museum space, a huge hall that could accommodate around over 30 people. And our meeting was divided into 3 parts. First, I presented briefly, I showed a presentation in the PowerPoint presentation, unexplained what the shtetl was. I wanted to familiarize the audience with the idea, with the notion of the shtetl, so that we could later decide whether Bochnia actually was or was not a shtetl. You can see the public, the audience, and a fragment of the presentation, a slide from the presentation. So this was my part. I posed open questions. I quoted various definitions, classic definitions of the shtetl, touching upon things like the look, the appearance of the town, the size of the population, the kind of territory where the shtetls were located. I think that the audience learned quite a lot. The second part was a discussion of experts with Dr. Iwona Zawicka. We tried to, together, establish if Bochnia was a shtetl. But we also, at the same time, talked quite a lot about the Jews of Bochnia. We discussed the history, when they appeared, when they arrived in Bochnia. Perhaps you yourselves could also discuss if Bochnia was a shtetl. We actually decided Bochnia, after all, was not a shtetl because it did not have the chance to become a shtetl because it was a royal town after all, and it received the non-tolerandis judaeis privilege, and Jews were excluded from the town for a certain period, and these Jews only started coming back again in the 18th, 19th centuries, and they were more assimilated. But there were certain fragments of Bochnia. So there are districts where you could still see the climate of Jewish streets, quarters. So you still have such areas in the town, and we managed a week later, after our meeting, Dr. Zawicka had a meeting that dealt with the presence of Jews in the space of the town, about various particular streets. And the third part was a discussion with the audience, where we tried to encourage the participants of the meeting to tell us perhaps their stories, whether anything was said about the Jewish past in their family homes, whether they have had any contact with the Jewish legacy in Bochnia, because there is the building of the synagogue in Bochnia still standing. So we ask them if all the participants have any mental map of the Jewish presence in Bochnia in the past, and I was positively surprised that so many people came after, and the discussion was fruitful. So I can positively conclude that that in our community, the memory of the Jews of Bochnia is alive, and people are interested in the Jewish past. Hopefully, there'll be other meetings and projects. People are interested. Thank you very much. It's good that you've managed to establish contacts with the local museum and inscribe your project into the program of the museum. Hopefully, it's just the beginning, and there'll be more meetings to come. Let's stay in the region of Małopolska, and let me ask Elżbieta from Dobczyce to speak now. Yes, we can see your presentation now. Hopefully the slide will work as well. So let me start. I'm a retired teacher. I've lived in Dobczyce practically from the time I was born. My family have lived here from the 17th century. So I'm interested in the history of the town of Dobczyce very much. I feel a guardian of the keeper of its of the memory of the history of the town, and I've been dealing for a number of years with the commemoration of Dobczyce Jews, and I managed even to gather enough information to publish a book which came out last year. I prepared, as part of the project, I've prepared a tour, a walk over the trace in the footsteps of Jews of Dobczyce, where I used the information accumulated so far. The speaker has some problems with the presentation. Okay. I'd like to thank very much to all those people who helped me organize this this walk in the footsteps of the Jews of Liquidation, and I'm very glad I was able to take part in this project, that I could involve so many people. 35 people took part in the walk, in the tour. It was very interesting, and I had to repeat it. And on the 4th of December, I did yet another tour in which around 15 people took part. I prepared a poster, invitation, and a special map that all the participants of the tour, of the walk, received. The invitation actually was not necessary because it was an open an event. The leaflet featured a map of the town of the tour with some points marked on the map that were related to the history of Jews in the Ptitsa, and the explanation of the map. The map it went down very well, and people were glad to receive them. We started the meeting in the market square, which was the place where Jews were deported from. This was my idea, to start where the history of the Ptitsa Jews actually ended, where the coexistence of the Jewish and non-Jewish communities ended on the 22nd August of 1942. The Jews of the Ptitsa received direct order to arrive at the market square. There were over 700 of them. Before the war, there were 400 Jews in the Ptitsa, but during the war, many people resettled to the Ptitsa arrived, also from Krakow, for example. So there were 700 Jews who were deported, and a few dozen horse-drawn carts were prepared for them. Those who witnessed this event remember that it was a great lament and a cry in the air of the people. These people simply knew they would not be coming back to their homes. It was a very tragic event. And I just wanted to remember about it. And then we we headed for places that were very important to the Jews of the Ptitsa. We went along Jagiellońska Street towards the former synagogue and the mikveh. I was fortunate to find a sort of similar picture from many years ago with Hania Thaler and Nina Thaler walking pretty much the same path. We stopped by the ruins of the mikveh. This is practically the last monument related to the Jews of the Ptitsa. The mikveh in the until the 1970s, practically, I think the early 1970s, was the town bathhouse. Later it was not needed, so it just continually fell into ruin, and there was fire after the year 2000, and this was practically the end of this building, and this is what it looks like now. Together with a group of friends, we're trying to recover this place. It belongs to the Jews of the Ptitsa so much, and there is no other place where we could commemorate them. We're thinking of establishing a committee to rescue the mikveh, to cut out the trees that started growing there, and to preserve the walls, and to put up plaques on the walls with the names of the people who lived there. There were around 80 families. We could expose photographs that we have a lot of, because we've managed to establish contacts with the former inhabitants of the Ptitsa now living in Israel, and they shared the photographs with us. This could be covered with some kind of roofing, like the Bima in Tarnów. This could be a nice place where commemoration stone could be put, or where a candle could be lit on the date of the deportation, could be commemorated. Unfortunately, we have problems because the current owner disagrees to have anything done there. Let us move on. The next stage of our tour was the synagogue that is non-existent anymore. This is the building in the top right corner that I'm showing now. And in the postcard, it's you can see only a fragment that's cut off at the edge of the photograph. It was a two-story building erected in 1900. And in the October of 1939, it was set on fire by the Germans. Next to the synagogue was a cheder. This is where Jewish boys learned their religion. They also went to a public school close to the synagogue, built in 1882, and the whole school archive has been preserved, and we could analyze it and see that 523 Jewish students attended the school until 1939, until the Second World War. The next photograph shows students in front before the building. The photo was taken by Leib Stigol, very known person in Dobczyce until today, because virtually all families in Dobczyce has photographs taken by that photographer Stigol. In the corner of the photograph, you can even see his stamp. Then from the school, we actually returned to the market square. We went around the market square, and I spoke about the different Jewish families that lived there, about their houses, different places connected to the Jewish history. You can see the house of the Kaufers, the Kaufer family, the most kind of spectacular place in the market square. It was built in the 19th century, at the end of the 19th century, by the Kaufer family and by Zachariah Kaufer, who had a textile shop there. Then later his family had a little manufacture there where suits were produced. On the top floor, well-known Dr. Josef Roth lived. During the war, a day care center for Jewish children was located there, for children who couldn't go to school, and Ada Nadelhecht taught these children there, who was a teacher from the Jewish gymnasium in Krakow, and during the war she was resettled to Dobczyce, and this is where she worked and was active. One of the resettled person was Bill Kaufer, a Krakow lawyer, who returned to his hometown during the war, and he was also active in the Jewish self-help organization. Did his best to help the people during the war. The next house that I want to show, the one that I'm showing now, the Kunstenger house, the house of the Kunstenger family. They had three houses. This is one of their houses. The most well-known representative of the family was Nathan Kunstenger, who was a member of the Piłsudski legions during the First World War, who received the Order of Independence. His history was very interesting, but I have no time to tell you about him, sadly. There is a note from my mother's diary where Hella Kunstlinger wrote a note. We stopped in Kiliński Street that is so long that we were not able to go along it, especially the houses of Jewish history are non-existent anymore, but this street had two Jewish bakeries, number 34 of the Spanow Beigel family, and the other bakery was the small bakery that you can see in the small picture in the bottom right. The Kluger, Benjamin Kluger's bakery. This house is gone now, sadly. On the left, you can see an inn that belonged to the Schwimmer family, and a shop of the Thaler family. They were related, the two families. The Thalers and the Schwimmers was the center for the Beitar organization youth. Also, the Kiliński Street had two houses of prayer, Abraham Hojda house and Jakub Kluger Stiebel. They were both butchers. And at the end of this region, the region was called Marvin, there was another bakery. Another Jewish house that used to house a shop with kitchen utensils. This is where we stopped at the end of Kastel and Dobek Street. On the left, the house is gone. What you see now is a new house, but there was a house where Israel Kleinman lived, who was a shochet and a mochel at the same time, and he circumcised all the Jewish boys and who lived in the area. The house to the right has been preserved, is the original house, belonged to Wolf Schreiber, the owner of the greatest tannery, that also operated during the war under the German protectorate. And many people from the Schreiber family fortunately survived. Wolf Schreiber, his wife, his son, they also had the tannery after the war. Jakob Schreiber from the family was member of the town council in Dobczyce, and Henrik Schreiber, also from the Schreiber family, was a lawyer, a town councillor of Krakow, a social activist, who was also a Jewish activist because a member of the Jewish community in Krakow. I'm very sorry, but we have to speed up. We have to be. So let me just briefly speak about the Zilberstein family, a very important family. There was a dentist and a legionnaire. Among them, another family, Födergrün, Unterberger family and the bakery, the house of the Schreiber family and the Halpen family, where the city, the town hall now is located. This is probably where the Zionists met. The Kaufer shops and the Klinger family shop, preserved till today. The Klinger sewing machines, and the other family sold crops. These three houses in the market square were also Jewish. And the other side of the market square, close to that small house that you can see in the picture, was the Gutman family, and they produced objects produced of metal tin plates. Two restaurants were also there. The further one that you can see in the background was owned by Jewish inhabitants of the Ptitsa, the Weiss family. In 1939, a bomb fell, and both houses simply ceased to exist. Reached the Podgórska street, and that street led towards the district called Podgóra, a typically Jewish quarter of the Ptitsa. Many houses were owned by the Jewish family. 6 out of the 8 tanneries of the town of the Ptitsa were located there. There was also a wood mill and a windmill, a water mill actually. I did the first part of the tour by lighting a candle by the plaque on a school built after the war. In 1979, the inhabitants of the Ptitsa put up a plaque commemorated to children murdered during the Second World War. The plaque mentions different children murdered by a bomb that fell on the building. One of the children was a Jewish boy that was hiding in a bunker and was discovered and shot in the bunker. Other children also commemorated, Jewish Polish children. So we lit a candle there. It was very cold, and I'd been dragging them along the town for over 2 hours. And 4 people went with me also to the Zarabia region, another part of the town. And I promised them that we would do a very long walk in the summer when we can walk around the town until the evening. But I want to say I had to do the tour again after the first walk, the first tour. Many people were interested. So I did another tour on the 4th of December. there were 15 participants of the second tour. The first time 34 people came. It was easier the second time. It was easier to speak to a smaller group, and the weather was better. I still have the leaflets. I printed out a lot of them, and I hope to be able to do more such tours. I would still like to be a guardian of memory. I'm sure you are, Elżbieta. Thank you very much. We keep our fingers crossed for more walks. I do hope we manage to commemorate the mikveh. Please keep us informed. We'll do our best to help you in them. We have to speed up. I'm very sorry. We are still in the Małopolska region. Marek, if I can ask you to please tell us what is happening in Mszana, in the town of Mszana. I'll try to be brief. Marek Rakucki, that's what my name is, from the foundation Mszana Dolna Sztetl. We've been dealing with the subject of memory for over 20 years. We were very glad to have been invited to the Academy of the Guardians of Memory because it was another opportunity to do something else. We came up with the idea. Our problem that we have locally is that Mszana simply doesn't want to remember. So we doing our best to encourage people to remember. And we invented a project, and as part of the project, we do the story of Mszana righteous among the nations, and doing this project, we spoke about a bicultural Mszana Dolna before the war, and about the Holocaust that took place in Mszana. We started our project in the high school in Mszana, and we did 2 meetings for two different classes from grades 9 to 12. Let me share my presentation and show you a few photographs. So we talked, we told the youth in the school. Can you see my presentation? Yes, now we can see it. We can see the pictures too. So we began with a high school. You can see a few pictures from one of the classes we did the meetings to. We spoke about the righteous from Mszana. We spoke about Mszana before the war, about the Holocaust. Then we did another meeting together with the town council of Mszana Dolna. It was an open meeting for everybody in the town office, and it took place in a kind of expanded form. We also prepared some challah and hummus for the participants. I wanted to show you these pictures, but it's going very slowly. And finally, the final meeting that we did was organized with the primary school, the first primary school for grade 7, all classes of grade 7, together with our teachers. And except for our store, we also prepared some challah for them. This is from the meeting in the town hall. Anyway, using the materials that we received, resources that we received from you for the project, So as at the end of the meeting, we created some organized some kind of quiz, and the students that won the quiz received the material, the gadgets from the project. Also, the participants for the meeting in the town hall received them. We also produced leaflets devoted to the righteous of Mshana. We did a few hundred of them, so every participant of the meeting received one. And this information later reached their families and friends. What else did we do around the project? We publicized it on Facebook, Shtetl Mshana Dolna, on our foundation Facebook account. Some articles were published in the local media about our meetings, and a journalist was present of the local TV, was present in the meeting in the town hall, and she did reportage that was shown in the local TV. Gazeta Krakowska also published both in paper and online an article on the Mshana righteous and an article summarizing the project. And what else did we do? Well, summing up, we reached around 250 participants took place in the various meetings, from grade 7 through the high school students to the adults in the town hall meeting. So we reached 250 people. What really made us happy was feedback through the grapevine, shall I say, of children who went back home, told the parents and grandparents or someone else from the families. And the information reached us back that children told us about you telling them the story, and we were very happy because this is what we intended to get Mshana, the town of Mshana, interested in the subject of the history of Mshana Jews and what happened to them. Thank you very much. The numbers are really impressive. Attendance list. So the trend is positive. Keep it up, please. Thank you very much. So let me ask Eva now, and the region of Silesia, Schlesien. Good evening. My name is Ewa Sokołowska-Grobel. I did a project with the 10th secondary school, high school in Katowice. And to start with, I'd like to say that I'm very glad that I'm a participant of this project, because this project gave a lot to me myself, hopefully also to my students. I'll speak about it in a moment. I've been working for 3 years in Katowice. 3 years ago, when I did a project with my previous school, I did a project on the Jewish roots of Zagłębie, the region that I come from. But now we've been looking for similar stories in Katowice. And I managed, thanks to the historian that I've been cooperating with, to learn about the Henryk Sławik. The story of Henryk Sławik, who together with Józef Antal, he left for Hungary, and he created an orphanage where he saved around 5,000 children, Jewish and non-Jewish Polish, or Jewish Polish children and non-Jewish Polish children. They all survived the war. But Henryk Sławik himself was killed. on the last day of the war. He died in a concentration camp, but he didn't give away Josef Antal, his Hungarian friend. He lived long, died in the 1970s. And then both gentlemen were awarded the title of the Righteous among the Nation, but only in 1995. Josef Antal's medal diploma was received by his son, who was the prime minister in Hungary at the time, and Henryk Słavik's title was award was received by Słavik's daughter. Our event was organized. We managed to use the hall of the Katowice Palace of Youth, and we were able to invite our youth who took part in the event in great numbers, over 300 people. We also invited a class from a school named after Henryk Sławic, grade 8, who represented the school. Due to COVID, sadly, we couldn't invite a greater number of people. The Association of Henryk Sławic and Josef Antal helped us. This association, they came to us with a lecture, and one of the guests invited who visited us was the former ambassador, Polish ambassador to Hungary, Mr. Grzegorz Kupczyk. He's a man who, living in Hungary, discovered the story of Henryk Sławic and Josef Antal. And next to this, we started our meeting with a nice short film where great-granddaughter of Henryk Sławic speaks about her great-grandfather, and she walks around Katowice and talks about the places, presents the places to do with his life and his activity in the city hall, the monuments, the plaques commemorating her great-grandfather in the city of Katowice. And then Ambassador Kupczyk gave us a short lecture about Henryk Sławic and his work activity. And we finished our meeting with a film, kind of documentary. Was produced the initiative of Mr. Ambassador. Before our meeting, you could see an exhibition. In the top left corner, there's a picture showing our youth are watching the exhibition, both before and after the meeting. We informed about the exhibition and the open meeting in the Palace of Youth. We informed the City Council of Katowice and the promotion department, and they reached the inhabitants through the city Facebook. The MK radio, local radio, appeared at the meeting as well, and they prepared a program about Henryk Sławic. I was helped by a history teacher from my school and the German teacher from my school. What else can I tell you? It went down very well with our students. We also planned workshops. The history teacher was to do the workshop as a kind of second stage of the project, but it turned out that after the meeting, our students came to the history teacher and asked him to do a next stage of the other project in a workshop form. We evaluated the project, and our students spoke very positively of the project. The learning history this way is very interesting. This is a good way of learning the connection with the Jewish history, and they didn't want to stop at that. We'd like to do it, whether it in cooperation with you or alone. We'd like to do at least one event yearly because we can see there's demand for it in our school. I don't want to finish with this project because at the moment I'm preparing a film about Henryk Sławik with my students, and we will be presenting it in one of the all Polish competitions, Europe from our street, and hopefully Henryk Sławik will also be a good theme for a film for the Centropa and the Polish-Hungarian story, or actually not even Polish but Silesian story. My apologies for the technical problems from my side. Thank you very much. So let us move a bit further away from Krakow. Mariusz, if I can ask you now to take the floor, and the city of Kraśnik, the town of Kraśnik. Is my presentation visible? I'm very happy to be a member of the project Academy of the Gardens of Memory. It means a lot to me, not only in terms of the subject matter, but also the methodology I learned. I've been able to show the Jewish history of Kraśnik. As part of the project, we started the preparation with the cleaning work at the Jewish cemetery in Kraśnik. It's one of the 3 Jewish cemeteries, but the only preserved one with a monument, the only one functioning in the memory of the inhabitants of Kraśnik. It's in very bad shape, sadly. Groups of Israeli youth come to us from Jerusalem, from a befriended school. And I feel ashamed to take them there and show it to them. It's overgrown with bushes, and there was a little litter dump there. But due to 3 actions since May and August and recently in October, we managed to clean it up, to clear away all the garbage. The bushes were cut out. We obtained some funds. Also thanks to the Grodzka Gate in Lublin for the fencing around, ring fence around the cemetery, and soon we'll start ring fencing the cemetery. The cemetery has an area of 3 hectares, so it's quite a size, but hopefully we'll manage to complete our work. Mariusz, please, sadly we have some technical problems. Perhaps if you... So we started with some cleanup in the Jewish cemetery with the school volunteers. We used also one of our graduates, Dr. Dominik Schulz, who's the kind of social guardian of the monuments of the Kraśnik County, and it resulted in the process of ring fencing the cemetery. And as part of the project itself, we prepared a guidebook thanks to the funds received from the Galicia Museum. We used it to publish a mini guidebook in the footsteps of the Kraśnik Jews. We published it in 1,000 copies, so it's not that few, but it contains only a few pages and lists most important places to do with the history of the Kraśnik Jews. We did such a walk tour on the 4th of November. It lasted for 2 hours. We prepared a map with our students. We can only see the first slide. Can you please move the slides? So here's the map. So the map, we marked 6 most important points to do with the history of the Karashini Jews. One is the oldest Jewish cemetery in Podvalna Street. The participants, not only students of our school, around 35, 40 people took part, but it was also 12 adults. A man even cycled from Bojice, 14 kilometers away from Krasnik, thanks to an article in the local newspaper, learned about the walk, the tour, and so he cycled all the way to find out about the history of the Krasnik Jews. Everybody was surprised that there's no information, no plaque even in Podvalna Street. There are orchards, gardens now. There's a fair market where our students often go to do shopping, and no one realizes that this is where the oldest 16th century Jewish cemetery was. Then we crossed the market square, where Dominic Schultz informed everybody about the history of Jewish settlements. Then we moved on to the synagogue compound complex, and the oldest synagogue from the 17th century and the younger from the 19th century. We entered it, and together with Dominic Schultz, we familiarized the participants with the history of the two buildings. We saw the remnants of the polychrome of the frescoes on the walls. On the outside, the shape is quite good thanks to the renovation. They've been restored. Inside, unfortunately, it still leaves a lot to be desired. Then we walked on to the number 4, the next cemetery, in Strażacka and Ogrodowa streets. This now is a park. There's no plaque either, sadly. Our students quite often go there, even they say that when they skip classes, play truant, this is where they go, and they have no idea where this was, where the second Jewish cemetery was. We went to number 5, the former Mikveh. Today it's a private building. Some investor bought it, and now it's deserted. We also familiarized the participants with the history of the building. And we told them what a mikveh was all about. And then we finished our tour in Ulica Szewska, the youngest Jewish cemetery and the best preserved of all the 3 from the 19th century, where Jews were buried until the end of the Second World War. During the Second World War, there were even a few executions took place there. In the area of 3 hectares, there are 30, 40, 100 people buried there. So it's quite a big area. We can't see the photos yet. Still see the map. Okay. So the fragment of my presentation in the market square. My students are holding the little guidebook. We had the opportunity to confront what the brochure, the guidebook has with the real, what it really looks like in this space today. The guidebook presents a short history, description of the places. This is the interior of the synagogue. So inside, it's really a building site. The keys are deposited in the town hall of Krasnik. I can take the keys out and we can enter the place, but it still looks like a building site. We managed to involve a lot of the local media, and not only local media, also from the city of Lublin. I mentioned a journalist from the Dziennik Wschodni who it featured information about the walk, and then it presented a short article about how it developed. You can also see one of my former students, now a journalist for the Lubelska TV, a local TV station. That is that reaches many houses in the Lublin area, and they presented information news, 6-minute video footage about our walk, and the online website also presents a longer reportage from the event. This is the second oldest Jewish cemetery, former Jewish cemetery. To the right of me in the mosque is Dr. Dominic Schulz, and behind him is a journalist from the SK radio. He recorded 2 radio news from the walk, and for 2 days he presented footage from the walk in his radio. We're quite happy about the great interest. You can see school Facebook, the town Facebook, the town culture center, and the Lublin TV, the SK radio news were presented. So this is from the Karashini town Facebook account. So despite the bad weather, we managed to walk the tour, and due to some unpleasant situations, at a certain point, the access to the Jewish cemetery, it actually leads through private possession. So she prohibited us from walking there, and we had to walk around. So we're really angry that the city actually has not put the landlady was unhappy about the town hall not implementing illumination and lamps, and she was trying to take it out on us and prevent us from entering the Jewish cemetery. We're quite happy about the comments. You can see a comment by Andrew Mai, the former head of the Karashini County administration. He supported us very well, quite a lot. Also in our previous projects, a lot of entries also were made by people from Israel of Jewish Polish descent. They were quite happy that something like this in Karashini is taking place. So it went down very well, and the questions from the culture center, from this town hall, asking about the next walks. So there's great interest. It resonated well, not only among inhabitants of Karashini, but also people from outside who come here and want to see the monuments of Jewish culture in our town. And I'm happy we managed to publish this little guidebook, prepared by our students. I divided the students into a few groups, and each of them gathered information about different aspects of history, about the cemeteries, the synagogues, the mikveh, and then after some editing, we place it in the guidebook. And the added value is, of course, the knowledge that our students acquired through the project, and the interest. In January, hopefully, we will go to the lessons in the Auschwitz Museum. We hope to visit Krakow and visit your Galicia Museum. We're also planning to go to the Polin Museum in Warsaw, and if the COVID pandemic allows us, we have far-reaching plans and to use our the experience we acquired in this project and to carry out further projects. We're now already speaking with the town hall to organize some Jewish culture days in Karashini, to ask lecturers who would speak about the history of the Jewish people, their religion, Judaism. So really thinking of preparing a greater event in the spring of next year. Thank you. Thank you very much. it's very positive that the children were so engaged, so involved in the creation of the materials that you produce, and that is so useful and hopefully will be useful in the next events. Let us also speak about a project where the target group was completely different. Anna, please. I think you're the only one among us with this kind of experience. So for a change, the aim of my project was a change and progress. So I'd like to speak about, briefly tell you about, because I tend to be too talkative and garrulous, so I'll try to be very specific, precise. Let me share my screen with you. Let me know if you can see it. Yes. We can't see the first look. Okay, yes, now. So I'm a member of the Saga Grybów Association as part of the Academy of the Guidance of Memory. I've created 2 educational workshops for preschool children and early school children. The first workshop, Shabbat Stories, was carried out in 6 groups of the public preschool. The children learned the traditions and the meaning of Shabbat. And at first, I tried to explain the meaning of the holiday, who is it observed by, what customs are related to it, in cards that I prepared that you can see here in this slide. These, of course, a selection of cards. I presented dishes that can be found on a Shabbat table. Of course, these dishes can slightly differ among different Jewish families, but still there are certain objects that are used during the Shabbat, like the candlesticks or the Kiddush cup. And then the final stage, the children themselves created a Shabbat table, sticking particular elements on the big sheet. Each of the groups also received booklets produced by the Galicia Museum, Dreidel and Hamantashe. You can see our children here, Dreidel and Hamantashe. This is the book prepared by the Galicia Jewish Museum. This was the most beautiful in the event, because, as you can imagine, a group of children this young is quite a specific recipient of educational activities, but the children really got interested in the topic. They took part in the discussion, they asked questions. You would have thought that soon they would forget it, as often happens with the children so young. But when after some time, I revisited the group just to fill in some documents about the project, I saw that the classroom still has the big panel prepared by us in the classroom, and Edita Kovac on the right side was reading to the children the booklet that I left with them. It was very moving to me, especially that other people, other teachers, as I said, I did it to 6 preschool groups. All the other teachers also felt that it was an important subject that is important to tell to children. You don't need an external outside educator for that. You can take it over and you do it yourself. It's also important for us educators to remember we mustn't treat these histories as our own property that only we can tell. A quick summary here that I've mentioned. The other workshop that I did, the topic of the other workshop was the passion of discovery on the basis of forgotten Jewish stories. This workshop was carried out in grade 6 of the primary school number 1 in Grybów in 4 groups. During the workshops, the children shared information about their passions. Surprisingly, the children have quite a whole range of different passions. sometimes quite specific. The children could learn how you can discover your interests, and that passions, the discovery of the local history can also be a passion, because opposite the building of the school where I was doing my workshop, there is a mural that you can see in this slide presenting Jewish children, Anya and Ijo Riegelhaupt. The basis of letters and stories, we attempted to analyze the pre-war life of these children and the Jewish community of Gribów. You can see their letters. I don't know if you can see them well. This is what they look like. The auxiliary resources were it's called green notebooks, diaries of Rachela, given to us by Museum Galicia. So there were cards presenting objects from the Jewish community kept in the local museum. I encourage the children to ask their teachers to go to the museum and see it live, actually, because the museum also has around a 200-year-old Torah scroll that belonged to the Jewish community in Gribów. The moving moment for me was when the children themselves read out the letters from Mania, and they could really render the emotions that surely Mania felt during when she was writing the letters. She lived in Krakow before the war, and she was writing those letters to Feiga, her children, her aunt in Palestine. The aim of the project, the aim of the workshops, was to make the children curious about the local history and curious enough to interested in searching for information on this subject. Hopefully, children will be able to receive the mural opposite the school in a different way. The boy that is visible there, Ijo, was a student of the school where I was doing my workshop. This used to be a boys' school before the war. I just wish to add that Eva Kornakiewicz, a religion teacher from the school, who invited me to do the workshop in the school, finished the lesson in a beautiful way, speaking of tolerance and its meaning for all people. So let me thank you, especially Eva, the teacher, for all her stories, for what she does every day, for all her efforts in maintaining the memory of Gribów Jews. I also want to thank you, Ada, and Anya Wenzel from the Galicia Jewish Museum, for all your helpful remarks and supervision of the project. And I'm really grateful to the principal of the school in Gribów, Anna Maślak, and to the principal of the preschool, Jolanta Petrilli, and all the teachers and form teachers of the classes I did my workshops in. I'm very proud that they can approach the work with such passion and empathy and engagement. What I also want to stress is that as a certain element recurs in the projects that you carry out. People are really interested in the subject, beginning with the youngest ones to the older ones. So I think there's a lot of work ahead of us, and I'm really happy. It was a good beginning, and I think it would be a mistake to think that it was only an event that was kind of developing only for the students or for the target group. was fruitful for everybody. It let us enlarge in our knowledge about the community, not only of the region, but in general, and make more systematic the knowledge that we have. I don't know how to stop it. Okay, fortunately, I've stopped sharing the screen. Thank you very, very much, Anna. It's very moving that such little projects are like little sparks, showing that it can go further and it can be inspiration for you to keep it up. We really have to speed up Renata and Pabianica outside watch. I like to keep my presentation short. I cannot see my presentation myself, sadly. A quick exchange of technical remarks, how to make the presentation visible. I think it won't work. In the meantime, another speaker will take over while the previous speaker will be working on her presentation. Is my presentation visible now? Yes. My name is Eva Kupiec. I'm from Wieliczka, outside Krakow. I've lived in Wieliczka all my life. I own the Wieliczka manufacture and the only official town guide in Wieliczka. I prepared 3 routes, among them the Jews of Wieliczka and Klasna. This is route 3. And this route and this Jewish history took me to the Galicia Jewish Museum, and I've found the project Academy of the Gardens of Memory. As for my activity within the project, I was supposed to prepare a walk, but because the weather is very bad now and the tour would last 2.5 hours, so I decided to prepare a meeting presenting not so much the history of Wieliczka Jews, but a meeting familiarizing with Jewish culture, religion, customs. It consists of 2 parts of my presentation and a lecture by Anna Krzyczkowska. It took place on the 23rd of November on a Tuesday at 6 o'clock. It took place in the Wieliczka Center of Culture. For Fortunately, the rector of the institution was interested, and the meeting took place in a beautiful house in the market square. The first part was my lecture. My aim was to, in a nutshell, to present the history of Judaism, the Torah, Talmud, Halacha, the main symbols, the menorah, the Star of David, to speak about the Jewish community, the basic religious institutions, the mikveh, synagogue, and the cemetery. I also want to speak about the typical Jewish home, kashrut, the role of the women in the family, and the most important customs and Jewish holidays. I think that I got the audience interested. I wanted them to get this information in a nutshell and to make them interested, and reach for this subject on their own. Of course, this lecture was referred to the history of Velichka Jews. And as you can see, I spoke about also the Jews of Velichka. You can see on the left side, who appeared in Velichka during the early Piast dynasty in the Middle Ages. That was related to the salt mine, and the other slide speaks of Bar Mitzvah. As for the audience, a lot of people came. I was positively surprised. I was afraid I would be speaking to a very small group, and almost 80 people came. We ran out of chairs even. So that was very pleasant. Even the deputy mayor came to the meeting. You can see her in this slide on the right side. The other presentation, Anna Krzyzkowska-Ślesarczyk spoke. She accepted my invitation to the meeting. She's the co-author of the book, The Jews of Velichka and Klasna. This is the only book, the only monograph that quite richly depicts the history and life of the Jews of Velichka and Klasno. The subject of her presentation was the circumstances of how the book was produced, and she also spoke about the most well-known Jewish family of Velichka. In the picture, you can see the family of Sandefrau, which had an alcohol shop in Sikorski Street. She also spoke of the family of Lax, Günhofer, and Wimmer. I think she encouraged the audience to reach for the book. It's a very interesting book. And on the basis of this publication, I produced the third route of my walk. The meeting had a third part. I didn't put it on the poster for the meeting. I decided that except for some knowledge, it's good to present something for the palate. And thanks to my friends, my colleagues, we prepared challah and matzah, kugel, hummus, gefilte fish, rogelach and beigelach. This bakery also produced special sweet bread for our opportunity. You can see my friends in my home preparing some of the food. The fish in the photograph. We also presented some paintings that I will speak about in a moment. I think it was good opportunity to prepare such a table with food. People simply didn't leave after the lecture, and there was time to speak, to talk, to exchange comments, remarks, to get to know people, and hopefully this will prove fruitful in the future. The evening was also made more interesting thanks to a few gadgets given to us by the Galicia Museum and the Village manufacture. Wojciech Halowa, an artist, prepared especially a menorah and a Star of David for the meeting. We also presented paintings, because in my Village manufacture, in my company, my firm, we do souvenirs from Village. So we want to show that you can do interesting things. These paintings have some history in the background because the plank on which these paintings are painted come from the house of Hirsch Goldman, who had an inn in the interwar period. I managed to obtain some wood from the attic and I prepared them, and Bożena Janus presented not only monuments but also people from the Jewish community of Village. My aim was, first of all, to present to the inhabitants of Village a fragment of our common culture and make them interested, encourage them to reach for more books to explore this history. Hopefully, when when spring comes, we'll do another meeting. Our meeting was quite short, only an hour and a half. Definitely not enough to mention everything. I wanted simply to familiarize the audience with the basic concept and with the history of Village Jews through a tour, a walk, and through literature. I know from feedback reached me that the event was popular, and hopefully other editions of this event will take place in the future. Thank you very much to the Galicia Museum. Thank you to Ada. Thank you to the principal of the Center of Culture in Village. Thank you to Anna Krzykowska, who accepted my invitation, to everybody who helped me practically, physically, and spiritually, and kept the fingers crossed for everything to turn out positively. I think it was a successful meeting. That's all from me. Thank you very much. We did a walk in Pabianice in the footsteps of the Pabianice Jews. It was called "The World There Is No More," because I wanted to pass the memory of the Pabianice Jews. In my town, there's no trace of places and of people except for a plaque commemorating the former synagogue and a much diminished Jewish cemetery that from May this year we've been cleaning. So except for this, there's nothing. It's also very difficult to find historical books to draw information from. So thus our work was difficult, was made difficult. And also not many inhabitants know that before the Second World War, over 8,000 Jews lived, which constituted 18% of the population of the town. And had it not been for the Holocaust, there would now be grandparents and grandfathers, grandmothers of our neighbors today. So I wanted to change this state of affairs and make the population of our town to learn about the history of the Jewish inhabitants of our town. So I decided to prepare this walk, this tour. This tour was in the footsteps of the Pabinice Jewish community. We started it by the former synagogue. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, it's here at the top. So we started by the former synagogue. We were positively surprised because so many people came to this walk that we were not prepared for that. We did not have enough copies of the guidebook for everybody. And there were almost 90 people. As for the first tour, a lot in the footsteps of the Pabinice Jews, was a great success. We were guided by Mr. Andrzej Gregorczyk, custodian of the Radegast station in Łódź. He's also a member of the Society for Jewish Research in Łódź, a person that's very knowledgeable about the Jewish population of the Łódź region. As I said before, we really had to do our best to find information about buildings and people when we were working on the guidebooks with a colleague. So we were doing it our own. So when searching for information, we came across a lot of contradictory information in books of memory and kind of bulletins. So it took us 2 weeks to gather everything, put it together, to make it historically reliable, so that no one criticizes us for putting in wrong information. I hope this guidebook was so popular that it disappeared in no second. Actually, everybody was really happy about receiving such a guidebook. So we moved from the synagogue along the streets of the old town that was practically inhabited by Jews. We went to Kaplichna Street, to 8 Kaplichna Street, to the former Cheder. Then to the Jewish Community Bank, to the Baruch Brothers factory. It was a big factory. Nothing is mentioned about it today. Only the Krusche and Ender, two factory owners, are known in Pabinice, but no one knows anything about the Baruch Brothers factory, who also had a big factory, and they produced wool textiles. The factory was owned by the father of Maximilian Baruch, and Maximilian Baruch is the author of the first historical monograph of Pabinice. And there's no commemoration whatsoever of the factory ever existing, of the Baruch Brothers factory, a well-known name in the Łódź region. Another important thing in the tour that we mentioned was the establishment of the foundation of the Ghetto and the liquidation of the Ghetto, because the liquidation took place in May 1942, and the Jewish population were expelled from the Ghetto, walked along the main street of the town to the Kunstenger Stadium, where they stayed for 2-3 days in rain. And then some of the people were sent to the Łódź ghetto, while others were sent to the Helmno, Kulmhof extermination camp, where all of them were murdered. And this is important for the Łódź region because our ghetto was the first one to be liquidated. And the things, objects from the people who were murdered were sent to a kind of sorting place. And the objects were segregated. The liquidation of the ghetto in Pabianice was the first signal for other Jewish communities that Jews are being murdered. So this is important for our town. So let me finish with this. I just want to also to show you the map that we produced with the borders of the former ghetto. The only plaque that commemorates the Jewish community with a historical mistake. Because the synagogue wasn't destroyed by the Nazis, but it was devastated a bit, but it was destroyed completely, taken down actually after the war. So this is a historical mistake. In a year, in 1942, this will be the 80th anniversary of the liquidation of the Pabianice ghetto, and we're planning a big event. And definitely this plaque will be changed, because we wanted to speak the truth. And a few pictures from our walk. A film was also recorded because it was the first walk that took place in Pabianice. We wanted really to acquire historical knowledge that was difficult to obtain. We wanted to have it recorded, so we have this film, and everybody can watch it on our website, on the website of our association. So this is what it looked like. A lot of local Pabianice activists took place in the walk, active in the field of Jewish memory, and hopefully this will mark the beginning of signaling that we will be able to change the state of memory. There will be more walks, there will be more workshops, and the inhabitants of our town, most of whom have no idea of the Jewish past of our town, hopefully will be able to participate in those events. And we, activists of the Pabianice town, will be able to restore the Jewish memory. I think under 200 people survived the Holocaust, but then they left and there's no one. So we have to take care of the Jewish memory and to carry on the history of our town. I'd like to thank all those who contributed to this walk, the Galicia Jewish Museum, Ada, and everybody from Pabianice who helped in preparing the guidebook and in organizing the tour. And that's all. Thank you. I hope it was just the beginning with 90 people in the walk. Surely there'll be many more editions of the walk. Please stop sharing the screen. Roman Flarowski is not present with us today. He couldn't join us today. But I have his presentation. He sent it over to me. So I'd like to show you very briefly what he did. Please let me know if anything is visible, if you can see the presentation. So Roman organized Day of Memory of Blesian Jews. It was aimed mostly at the students of the schools where he teaches. To begin with, information was given to the students about the history of the Jews of Blesian, and that's also part of the preparation for the liquidation, for the 18th anniversary of the liquidation of the ghetto in Blesian next year. He organized and he gathered the local, attracted the local media, the local administration, even the Catholic parish. So it resonated quite broadly. On the 24th of November, there was a meeting in one of the schools, a historical session. It included a lecture of Roman on the ghetto in Blesian. Then an exhibition was opened and the participant received an article that he prepared. Can you see it? So you can see photographs of the exhibition in the school. Objects related to Jewish past culture, a small academic session for the students of primary schools. It was opened by the head teacher of the school. You can see Roman Falarowski, who spoke about the Jewish community in Blesian and the ghetto in Blesian. Teachers who took part. Moving part of the project, a moving moment was a poem that one student, Antonina Vrona, wrote herself under the influence of the lessons and the meeting. So I think it was an interesting, very valuable consequence of the project. And a similar day of memory was organized in the other school where Roman teaches, in Broczkowo, and a few pictures from that event. We saw a photo of the exhibition to do with the Jewish tradition and culture and history. Articles actually appeared in the local press, and Roman prepared an article strictly about the history of the Blesian ghetto. It will be published soon. So this information will also be publicized. He sends his greetings to all of you. He wishes you happy holidays, and he sends his apologies for not being able to be with us. Sadly, he had other commitments. It's got really late. It's been a great pleasure to listen to all of you, and what happened as part of this project has been very inspiring and will surely make us to continue this project in some form, hopefully organize a new edition. And I will ask you to share your support and recommend it to your colleagues and friends. Thank you very much for all your time today, for all your time and work on the project. Let's stay in touch. I'll definitely contact you concerning the closing of your projects and to pass you the certificates. Thank you very much. My best greetings.